You ever pay to sit at a table and still get told to leave it?
That a card game or a confession?
It wasn't a card table. It was a boardroom. We're talking company owners who are their own ceiling. Take a seat. Don't get too comfortable. Welcome to the tie-in.
Man, I am feeling so excited here today. Feeling very grateful having this conversation. Grateful for the team at Division 7. Grateful for the industry. Grateful for my family. And God for bringing me to this glorious day.
Keith and John hanging out with you guys on a brand new show. We are reimagining the roofing industry live every week. I'm being gracefully and gratefully, I'm learning, and I've got nothing but gratitude.
Everything about it's been exciting, creative, intentional. I could be more excited. It's going to be a lot of fun.
We're just getting started. When a commercial roofing owner finds out his company isn't the problem, the meeting doesn't get easier. No, it gets pointed. Today, we're going to dig into the moment the $2 million roofer and the $20 million roofer stop being separated by roofing knowledge and start being separated by one thing, the person running the company, perhaps the person in the mirror. John and Keith live here on the tie-in, brought to you by Division 7 and Uptellis. Johnny, this one gets into what happens when a bad apple enters the bunch. John, you run a commercial roofing company. When was the last time you had a bad apple in the bunch? And isn't this the reason we got Greg Hayne here for us today?
Oh, well, good morning, everybody. Absolutely. The bad apples. We've had bushels of bad apples before that, maybe even were the majority. And, I'd suggest that the culture of the business starts to weed out those bad apples before they even get themselves established. So culture will drive out those apples just because that's what culture does. We protect ourselves.
This is a different kind of show we're going to have today. So, you and I are building this, we got this awesome show, The Tie-In, which goes live every single Thursday with yourself, myself, Ryan, and Steve. And today we're talking a kind of a different side of the industry, John, not so much about the roof, but the business side, the culture side, the maybe the owner looking in their own mirror side of things, John Kiesel. When you were looking at today's episode, kind of putting you on the spot here, like what do you think we're going to come out of it by the end of it when we're talking business owners, leaders, and the owners getting fired from the peer group that they're a part of?
I think it's a bit of a humility check. When we get into a peer group, we get into, again, that culture of a group. The culture protects itself. We establish our boundaries. And if you're not fitting in, whether that's a personality issue or contribution issue, the group rules.
Yes. All right, Jimmy, let's tee it up. So let's frame it up here today, Johnny. We're going to get into it. I want to get right into a conversation nugget this morning. What did the room see first? Yes, I know, Jimmy, we got that. I missed that one up there this morning. So, Johnny, all morning, we're going to come back to a few quick conversation nuggets that we're going to call today Still Standing. The idea is simple. In roofing, the real test isn't what something looks like on a perfect day. It's what holds up after weather, pressure, repairs, and time. And today, I think we both agree business is the same day. So, throughout the show here today, we're going to look at what gets exposed, what gets patched, but not necessarily on the roof, but in the business itself. Johnny, kick it off.
Well, I think that's why we have the show, The Tie-In. I think the tie-in here is the roof being challenged under stress, under components that really put pressure on that is integrity. Yeah. You have to have integrity in a roof. You have to have integrity, in a group setting. You have to, you're going to be tested when things aren't perfect. And that's really where we stand out as humans and how we navigate those challenges.
Hey, John, so when an experienced business owner is sitting around the table and they're seeing problems that they can see in somebody else's business before they see their own. I know we're going to talk a lot about that with Greg Hayne coming up about peer groups, but what's going through a business owner's mind when he's sitting in that group and he sees everybody else's problems, but he doesn't see his own problems?
Yeah, I think that, that's a symptom of, you can't see the forest through the trees and,
Yeah.
and it's hard. That's why it's so important to have conversations with people you can trust that are going to give you these honest feedback, bites of information for you to chew on. And sometimes that's a little unique for a business owner that, is kind of used to everybody saying, great idea, good idea. I can't wait to get started on it for you, boss. But when that relationship changes, you start to get, I think, maybe a little bit more honest impressions.
I know we're going to get more into that in our deep topic this morning on the tie-in. I know that we as business owners have humbling moments when we go through those peer group situations. We're going to get more into that coming up later in the hour. Greg Haynes joining myself and John Kiesel live here on the tie-in. Greg will be here in about 7 minutes. But before we do that, we're going to get into the roofer's desk. Hector and Randy have some 3 stories for Keith and John to dig into. Jimmy, let's set it up. Hector, Randy, what's going on in the news today? All right, starting off, Ohio Valley construction workforce, John, shortage hits 60,000 workers. Listen, here's the thing, 60,000 short at a 3.7% unemployment is not a shortage. It's the ceiling. Every Ohio commercial roof bid is now a labor availability bid first, a price bid second. Let's run the clip there, Jimmy, so John can dig into it.
New numbers just landed. Ohio Valley short 60,000 workers. Unemployment sitting at 3.7%. That's not a shortage. That's the ceiling. Ceiling. Every hand I trained 20 years back is running his own crew now. Everybody's fishing the same pond, Randy. That pond's dry. That's the business problem. Every roof job I bid now is a labor bid first. Price comes second. Can't staff it, can't win it. We're not just fighting each other anymore. It's manufacturing, data centers, and that Intel Ohio ramp coming in 2027. Same labor pool, more mouths. Guess I trained you too well. You're stealing my own guys now. Only learn from the best, old man.
So the Ohio Valley chapter of Associated Builders and Contractors published a workforce report putting the regional construction shortage 60,000 workers against a 3.7% trade unemployment rate right there in your backyard of Ohio. John Kiesel, what's this all about?
I think it's a continuation of, 40 years ago when I started in the industry, we always had a hard time finding people that had competency, drive, desire to be a contributing member to a crew. That was a problem. And I suggest now we have a crisis and it's going to compound itself because we're going to put the roofs on one way or the other. And it comes down to with what type of quality, with what type of competency when we move people onto projects that, we're feeling a little bit of desperation to fill that gap.
So I just want to pause and wrap my head around this for a moment. So I'm new to the industry. 60,000 workers short. So am I kind of interpreting this right, Kiesel? You put a bid in on a project, and I'm going to kind of put some humor into this. Are we keeping our fingers crossed that if we get the bid, we can find workers for the project?
Well, that's the process that we live in every single day. We can bid millions and millions and literally millions of dollars of work, not knowing which ones we're going to be successful on. We try to be successful on all of them. And you just take this natural attrition that, we're going to get maybe 20% of the jobs we bid, or maybe 30 or maybe 10. And you kind of build your staff around that. But there's always a risk of getting a tremendous amount of work and figuring out how to do it, or not getting any. So we live in a reactionary industry before we even get the job.
Like 60,000 people, and you've been in the industry for 40 years. I got to think this number has probably not changed very much. There's always been, is it fair for me to say, always been a shortage?
I think there's always been a shortage. There's always been a competition when it comes to retaining people. I think that we're doing better jobs at retaining people. We don't have quite as many active jumpers and moving around for, $1 an hour. I do see the concept that a lot of people are digging into just to start their own subcontracting business.
Yeah.
And build a crew and start putting roofs on. That definitely seems to be happening.
Yeah. Hey, Randy, Hector, what's up next? See, SRS didn't buy another roofing distributor. They bought the mechanical guys. Yeah, that is one. That's the tell. I think that's the tell where the commercial re-roof P&L is heading. Randy, Hector, what's this all about?
SRS Distribution just bought Lowe Miller. Now they're selling us roofing and mechanical, one shop. One shop's fine till there's one price. That's a monopoly on comfort systems and roofs both. Or one estimate covers both trades. Faster bid, fewer change orders. That's real margin, Hector.
Margin today. Then Home Depot decides who gets material first when supply's tight. I've lived that before.
Cute. Just don't let them price the comfort systems like they price shingles. Relax, old friend. It's roofing and mechanical under one roof.
John, SRS's CEO framed the deal as expanding the platform's ability to serve residential and commercial contractors under one roof. SRS owned by Home Depot. John, comments on this story?
Yeah, I think we've taken that home goods scenario from you went to a hardware store, you talked to Sam behind the counter, he told you all about the widget you're trying to buy and could guide you to the shelf and the component you need. Now you see massive amounts of products under one roof, and people are doing their own research. They're getting their own pieces of components, relying less on that Sam hardware store experience, and the commercial industry is probably moving in that same direction. So it comes down to the click buy, and I think we're going to get into that in the commercial space. So SRS is preparing to move a lot of pieces of parts when it comes to a building, and control that destination when it comes to distribution and transportation.
It's clear to me as I keep learning about the industry, it continues to get more vertically integrated, doesn't it, John? Like the one-stop shop, right? Is that a fair assumption of mine to make as well?
Yeah, I look at the pieces, the moving pieces. I definitely see this one-stop shop, and the change in the process is going to evolve. Target stores 20 years ago, our guest Greg Hayne will probably remember this, where you just went online and bid like an auction to get a re-roof or to get a new roof. And they cut out the whole human experience when it came to negotiation and pricing and consideration. You literally went onto a bid site.
Really?
And you just put your number in. And it told you if you were first, second, or third. And you can keep dropping your price until you were just doing the job for free if you want it.
Seriously. So you're bidding on a multi-million-dollar roof at Target just by putting bids on a website?
100. They provided the materials. All you had to do was tell them how much you were willing to install the roof for. That's humorous. I thought it was pretty funny when I bought a car on the early days of the internet. Here's my credit card. People are building commercial roofs by going and just putting a proposal and saying, here you go. That's right.
Oh, man, that's crazy. Hey, Randy, Hector, what's up with Amri's Elevate's parent? It raises revenue guidance, but trims EBITDA outlook on oil-driven input inflation. Jimmy.
Elevate's parent company just raised revenue guidance. Oil's driving up their raw material costs. Oil spikes, mod bit follows. I've bid through 3 oil shocks. Never once did the contractor eat it for free. Elevate's already rolling out price increases across the board for the back half. That hits every open bid on my desk. Lock a price today, they raise it in September. I'm the one eating the difference every single time. Buy your mod bet early this year, Hector. Already did. Twice.
More news from the industry. John, what's up with Amri's?
Yeah, it looks like we're heading to, a price increase is what they're saying. The signals are suggesting that. They haven't really named a particular product line of an EPDM or TPO or the mod bit products. I mean, they're definitely throwing up the tread softly warning signals, and I would suspect that we'll be receiving some price increases. But as we learned through COVID and other supply chain disruptions, we have price escalation clauses in all of our proposals these days, and we're prepared if something shifts or changes, and that price increase will, it'll fall back onto the buyer, which will drive inflation for the people that consume goods. The biggest expense on a building is a roof, and when people pay a lot for that, they have to get their money somewhere.
Yeah, coming up, Greg Hayne with Keith and John here live on the tie-in, brought to you by our friends at Optelos. If you want better visibility into your building's roofs and projects through visual data and digital twins, I invite you to visit Optelos.com. All right, Jimmy, Johnny, Archie, let's bring it into the next nugget today. What were you patching? So here's the thing, Johnny. Every roofer knows a patch can stop today's leak without fixing why the roof keeps failing. But let's move from the roof into the business. John, what are some business problems that you've seen owners that keep patching instead of finally dealing with the root cause? And before you answer that, as you and I keep building and working together, I'm learning from you that you like to go right to the root instead of just sitting back looking out high. What are some problems that you see that owners are always just patching, but maybe not having the chutzpah? There's a word for us this morning. Chutzpah.
Chutzpah. What's that?
To go and solve the root cause of the problem, John Kiesel.
Yes, we're going to discover today. We're going to talk about the owners and the people managing businesses, roofing businesses. It's a reflection on our ability to triage situations, interject ourselves, and be effective. When we have a roofing company, and I kind of look at it a little bit, a roofing company or a roofing business. We have to operate as a business, not the traditional roofing company mindset, because that's the competitive nature we're in today, is to operate like a high performing business. And when you start performing at those heights, you've got to deal with situations straight away.
I think one of the things that happens, at least I've seen in business myself, John, and I'm suspecting you have in your many years as well, and I'm sure Greg has as well, is that when we put a temporary fix into something that we think solves the problem, it can create that false confidence. Have you seen that experience in your business career?
Probably like, I don't know, maybe 10,000 times.
Daily? Yes, daily.
Yeah. I mean, you put the temporary patches on when it's pouring down rain. We have to stop the leak. We put a and have to circle back around and put that permanent patch on so that it'll stand the test of time. But I think we go around and put a lot of temporary seals on things, and before you know it, we have a full agenda of circling back around to the things that we put a patch on.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, coming up, Greg Hayne. You're hanging out with Keith Billis and John Kiesel live on the Tie-In every single Thursday. We got Ryan, Steve, John, and Keith bringing you guys awesome conversations as we continue to reimagine the roofing industry. All right, John, I see over there Blair Sutton, and I see over there our good guest, Greg Hayne, patiently waiting for us. John, why don't you set it up? What's coming up next with Blair Sutton?
Well, I had the privilege and honor of having Greg Hayne accept our invitation to come on here today with us. He's been a friend of mine, a mentor of mine, an inspiration of mine for a very, very long time. And I think that everybody that knows Greg Hayne would have the same opinion. Mostly would have the same opinion.
Greg Hayne has fired nice people, not for who they were, for what they refused to do. They joined his peer groups to grow their commercial roofing companies. Greg found some wouldn't grow themselves so their companies could grow. That's the work behind Hayne Coaching Group. Business growth begins the conversation. Leadership and personal development take it somewhere deeper. That discovery changed the meetings. Leadership development now takes a significant share of the time when these owners gather in person. It changed Greg too. When a member refuses the work, he now removes them from the group much faster. His diagnosis is blunt. Most contractors run reactively, not proactively. He keeps asking why some companies grow while others stay stuck. Greg says contractors do a terrible job hiring talent, both for the field and for the office. He also says too few emphasize building great cultures to work in. For him, hiring remains an open industry problem. He writes essays called Waking Up and wants contractors discussing the challenges ahead that they haven't recognized or addressed effectively. Greg Hayne, welcome to the Tie-In. We're looking forward to this conversation.
Wow, producer Melissa with some awesome introduction with Blair Sutton and our guest this morning, Greg Hayne, John Kiesel, and of course, Keith Billis here hosting the show with you guys. Greg, where are you joining us from this morning?
Good morning. I'm just laughing at the animations there of me. I look mad, and I'm not normally mad, but as John knows, it can't happen.
I love it. Johnny, I'm going to throw it over to you, man. We're going to have an awesome conversation with our friend Greg Hayne this morning. Johnny, why don't you start it off?
Yeah, I think in that opening, even though Greg looked a little bit serious, we'll describe it. And I think that's the way Greg looks a lot of times, is very serious and intentful. And I've been accused of looking that way most of the time myself, but we do like to have fun and laugh. One of the things that was mentioned in there was the ability to find other people that can do great things and hire proper staff. And that was for me one of the greatest things that I came away from that in the peer groups was I am not the best person to do all the roles in our business, and I don't have the time to. So when I started reaching out and finding people that could do things better than myself, and I was comfortable with seeing people exceed my capabilities, is why we were able to grow and why we're still growing. And I couldn't agree more with, Blair's comments there when she opened this up. But Greg, when you started, forming these peer groups and you invited people and you invited leaders to come and join, and, we probably thought even for myself, we're going to come here and we're going to talk about business strategy, but somehow along the way that changed into a personal development conversation more so than how to roll the dice and move the mice, so to speak. So, well, did you expect that to be a part of the peer groups, or was that something that surprised for you too?
I had no expectations that was going to happen. I got these groups together because I'd become this clearinghouse for best practices in commercial service. And I find I'll just get all these guys in a room, and I formed the first group that way. And we talked about everything. But what became apparent as time went on is that behind all of the roofing challenges that the contractors were dealing with, there were in reality leadership challenges. They have the wrong people in the wrong place. They have the wrong kinds of processes and procedures for where they wanted to go. What they were doing might have worked 10 years ago. It doesn't work now. Those sorts of things.
Yeah, and it seems like the peer group, I consider you probably the first person into the peer group concept. And, you definitely see other peer groups forming around the country and trying to focus on service and sales and other types of collaborations, but you definitely pioneered this. Do you think that, the leaders of these other peer groups, and I think that they're great people and they do a great job, do you think that they're, able to have that same impact like you are with saying, you don't fit in the problems do you think that they adopt that type of mindset like you have, or they kind of leave that off the table and not really discuss it?
So I know all those people, and they're all good people, and they're all trying hard, and just like I do. And all of us have our strengths and our weaknesses in how we go about doing what we do. And all of us are unique. So you're speaking to an area where I'm not afraid to tell somebody what I think, as you well know. And some of them apparently are more so, apparently.
Yeah. So, when you look at the leadership in the different commercial roofing companies, I mean, what do you feel is the common thread why contractors get stuck and others don't?
I've been listening to the whole show, and I think you've already alluded to it, and that's an unwillingness or or an inability to look in the mirror and see what's really there. This is kind of a crude, but the fish rots from the head. There's very, very few problems in any organization, not just roofing company. There's very, very few problems in an organization that ultimately are not the responsibility and often caused by the owner because of what he or she will or will not do, or they're trying to take half steps when they need to take whole steps. And a lot of these things are understandable, but owners get in the way all the time. They're the pinch point.
Owners get in the way all the time, John.
All the time.
Greg Hayne and Keith Billis.
All the time.
John, I want to take something from what Greg said and what you were alluding to. And, we talk about the mirror. Why do you think it's so difficult for somebody, a business leader, a business owner, Greg, to look in the mirror only when they need to react instead of actually being proactive? Why is we as humans, or why do business owners always look at reacting, Greg Hayne, in your experience?
Well, first of all, you're assuming that when they need to react, they look in the mirror.
Yes.
It's not always the case.
Yes.
There's some people that are very talented at being able to walk through a whole room full of mirrors and not see themselves. But I think that in many cases, because they run their businesses so reactively, they are constantly putting out fires. They are often, not always, but they're often the decision maker for everything, and everything has to run through them. Especially in smaller companies, this is completely understandable because everybody wears multiple hats. But you talked about reactive and proactive. There's another piece to this. So we understand reacting, we understand proactive, but there's another level, and that's called generative. And what John is doing with you in this program is generative. This thing is not that we're talking on the time. This is not necessary for the functioning of Division 7.
Yeah.
Okay. Division 7 can run just fine without this. So what John is doing is generative. That's beyond proactive. Generative is proactive, but not everything is proactive as generative. Okay. So we have far too many contractors stuck in reactive mode because they're constantly putting out fires. They don't know what else, and they don't know what else to do.
Yeah. So, John, I want to come to you because you've worked with Greg, and I want because our audience listening in is looking to take things from our conversation. So, John, as you've worked with Greg, how did Greg teach you? I got to make some assumptions here. How did Greg teach you how to get out of your own way, perhaps, to make proactive decisions instead of reactive decisions? You've been a leader for 40 years. You're leading Division 7. So explain how Greg helped you get out of your own way.
Yeah, and I think everybody's probably got out of their own way in different ways. For me, and Greg, and when I was on the Best of Success stage and received Innovator of the Year award, and when I received it, I thank Greg Hayne from that microphone that day, and it's helped to see that I have potential to do other things other than be the decision-making bottleneck. So kind of that self-discovery into finding value outside of being the decision maker and finding that rewarding mechanism for yourself to get up and contribute every day. So just learning how to contribute differently and giving over the keys to other people to maybe open up some doors.
Yeah. Coming up, the What If segment brought to you by Aptellos. Greg, coming back to you then. So what it sounds like John is saying is that you help these leaders discover themselves. And I know it's all fluffy, but moving outside of commercial roofing, you're sitting down with a business owner, and what I'm hearing is helping that man, helping that woman get out of their own way so that they can fly like John Kiesel. Would that be fair to say, Greg?
It's fair to say, but I think that what I am beginning to understand is that what's really going on is that someone like John sees how I continually question things, how I continually do not accept the status quo. And I give people permission to do that too, because that's what John did. I remember driving back from Asheville, North Carolina a few years ago, and John calls me on the phone and he harangued at me for 45 minutes because he was frustrated with the whole bunch of things in the industry. And his comment was, we shouldn't have to do things this way. And if you watch his history, there have been a whole series of steps that John has been taking to address that. So I think that really what I do is give permission to question.
Oh, I love it. Greg Hayne giving permission to question. Johnny Kiesel, let's move over to our friends at Aptellos. What if, Jimmy? What if?
What if the whole building envelope was one asset?
Come on. Roof, facade, parking lot, 3 different trades, 3 different budgets, 3 different vendors. That's how the industry's built.
That's how the industry's invoiced. It's not how the building actually fails. Water gets in, runs down the facade, pools at the base, cracks the asphalt. One problem, 3 phone calls, nobody in charge.
So the property manager makes 3 calls. That's their job.
Their job is a capital plan the board will sign. 3 vendors, 3 reports, 3 formats, 3 timelines. That's not a plan. That's a pile. Aptellos flies all 3 surfaces in one shift. One platform, one digital twin, one defect map from the coping to the curb.
So the roofer suddenly does facades and parking lots?
The roofer suddenly has the whole conversation, and the contractor who owns the conversation owns the account. Aptellos isn't a roofing tool. It's the operating layer for the built world. Roof, facade, parking lot, one asset. That's the what if.
John, when I saw this segment by our friends at Aptellos and I'm learning about the building envelope, I got to think to myself, what if? Like, why would you not have Aptellos help with your building envelope. John, dig into this what if segment for us before we bring her back our friend Greg Hayne to continue conversation with The Job with Greg Hayne. John.
Greg will say things, and he's asked this question before if he's speaking at IRE or wherever he's speaking at, and he'll ask people that want to build service departments, why do you want to have a service department? If the answer is because I want to make a lot of money, if the answer is I can get 60% profit margins, then you're not going to succeed. It has to be about how can you provide service to our clients. And this is bringing service to our clients beyond just the roof information or roof data. So if you're a service company and you want to provide service, this is a no-brainer to bring some more value to your operations and build that relationship.
Yeah, so if you're a building owner or a contractor looking for some great gear and a great team over at Uptellis, I invite you to go check out our friends at Uptellis because they will give you the information you can't even imagine that you have available to you, brought to you by our friends from Uptellis. All right, keep it on with Greg Hayne, Keith Billis, and John Kiesel this morning. Hey, Greg, so you've removed people from peer groups. Has it been John? Oh, yeah. Have you removed John Kiesel from a peer group? No. So listen, here's the serious thing. You've removed people from peer groups because although they were good people, they may not have been willing to do what was needed to grow themselves and their companies. How do you reach that decision to call a dude out and say, man, you don't fit here?
Well, we didn't have any guidelines when we started this, but we've kind of developed some. Number one is no assholes. And we screen people when they come in because we want to have good people. Just because someone fits the profile of being the right revenue and being the right geographic area, that doesn't mean we're going to put them in a group. And sometimes people screen well, but then after they're in the group for a while, problems become apparent. And so I have to do that. Another reason we get rid of people is because they can't get to the meetings. You can join a peer group, but if you can't get to a meeting, you're not helping the other contractors and you're not getting the help you need. So why be there? Let's find somebody that can make the meetings who will have them come. They're more dedicated to that. And the reason people can't get to the meetings is because they're running reactive businesses that won't work without them being there for 2 days. That's just crazy. Anyway, and it's not just small contractors, by the way. There's big contractors that have this problem. But we also have people that come into the groups and they come in with a problem, and 5 years later, they still have the same problem. And everybody in the room knows what they need to do, but they won't do it. And that's okay. They have a right to run their business any way they want. But if you can't solve your problems when everybody in the room knows what they were, how are you expecting them to help you with yours? And so they've got to go. And so and that doesn't happen often, but they go.
Yeah, Johnny.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in the peer groups. And I think maybe it started out. I think fortunate enough to be invited to the first peer group. I think it was the best peer group that I ever was involved with, and the people in it. And we definitely looked at and we've seen some of those people go through those symptoms and characteristics you describe, and it did take a couple of years before I saw Greg starting to step in and maybe move people around and reshuffle some groups and that. But I'm curious now, Greg, is that time frame shortened to maybe 2 sessions where you see the symptom? Is it 3 or 4? I mean, how fast is this moving around now when you discover something?
So let's be clear. There's contractors that come into the group, and I'm sitting there going, "Oh my God, this is going to be a problem." Okay. And it is, all right, for a year. And then you see there's a change. And I mean, I've had contractors that have joined a group with revenue of $4 million, and they struggle along, and all of a sudden something happens and they go to $20 million in 2 or 3 years. Okay. Something clicked for them. Generally, they got out of the way. Generally, that's what happens. They get out of the way. Right. So I've just learned, because of the signs that you see, I see them more quickly, and I'm like, okay, we'll wait. It's not like I expect instant everything. Sometimes it takes people a while to come around. That's why it took 4 or 5 years to get rid of that one contractor, because I was waiting for it to click. Never went click. So
Well, I'm glad you gave me some time, Greg, because I'm I'm really good friends with one of our original peer group members, and she has been very vocal with me. She's like, John, I really couldn't stand you when I first met you. You just always seemed so uptight and irritated, and you were just, I just didn't know if I could like you. And today, I think we're really, really close friends and have a great experience together. But I needed some time to kind of get my wheels underneath me, figure things out, and that concept of first impression, second impressions. I mean, you have to give people some time to fit in, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, Greg, I got a question for you. You said that you've seen companies go from 4 million to 20 million because, as simple as somebody's got out of their own way. I'd like to learn from you because, again, somebody listening right now might have an aha moment by something you might say next. What clicks? Is it somebody realizing the power of delegation? Is it something maybe you have said? Is it them going back to work going, oh, like, is there something so obvious where, we say, okay, they got out of their own way, but what does it mean? Like I said, yeah,
that's a really good question. And there's not necessarily a simple, clean answer that applies in every situation.
Yeah.
In some cases, I will sit down with someone that's struggling. And I say, get your ass out of the office and go sell because you're a born salesman. Okay. And then he did, and the business blew up in a good way. Okay. In other cases, here's the thing. I believe everybody inside of them, everybody has this fire that wants them to grow and get better. And it's just a matter of listening to that. And if I can be a vehicle for bringing that alive in somebody, I didn't say anything to John. John figured this out. John simply responded to what's inside of John. And these people that go from 4 million to 20 million or from 7 to 35 million or whatever the numbers are, okay, they're simply responding to something that's already innately inside of them. That's my belief. Yeah. All I'm doing is giving them permission to listen to that. And sometimes I kick in the ass.
Yes.
John, what do you hear Greg say? What do you hear when Greg says that?
I think it's a safe place, is what I feel, in that peer group setting. And Greg does a great job at setting that safe place when he says, give permission to expand and communicate. And the things that I've heard in peer groups from people hey, I'm going to sponsor a NFL football team, or I'm going to, buy a NASCAR race team, or, it's like, what the heck? But it's like, hey, let's flush this out, and by goodness, like they did it and they were super successful for doing it. But, it's okay to brainstorm. It's okay to think and get some feedback, because as an owner, as a man, it's kind of lonely at the top. You can't find people to bounce stuff off of. And this is that place.
Let's be clear. Every company is a mess on the inside. When you get to see behind the curtain, they're all a mess. It's whether you're a $2 million contractor or a $200 million contractor, you're a mess. And the people that are in my peer groups, they're a mess. Now, they're great contractors. And the thing that makes them great is they're willing to say, I don't have all the answers and I want help. That's the only difference between them and the don't. The people that don't join, that have the opportunity, their egos are too fragile, frankly. All right. But we walked into a peer group meeting a few years ago. A contractor had challenged me to be provocative. And so I walked in and I said, I want to ask you guys a question. How many of you are tired of the daily grind? How many of you feel like you're being drained, maybe even getting burned out? How many of you feel like that what got you to here is not enough anymore, that you need more? How many of you feel like your work drains you rather than energizes and feeds you? How many of you have constraints that keep you from moving forward in the way you might like? How many of you are tired of simply going through the motions? I said, I'd like to see a show of hands. Everybody put up their hands. Everybody put up their hands.
Well, that's a soundbite for you there, Keith. I mean, that was just all the reasons.
Yeah, in all peer groups, the hands all shut up. Then I said to them, how many of you know how to fix that? And nobody knew how to fix it.
Whoa, nobody knew how to fix it. Hey, contractors, if you're still making decisions from scattered photos, missing measurements, and what someone remembers from the roof, take a look at Uptello. See the building, measure it, document it, and make better decisions with a more complete picture. Visit our friends, inspectwithuptellos.com to learn more. Our last segment live with Keith, John, and our guest, Greg Hayne, this morning, live on the Tie-In every single Thursday right here on the Roofing Authority Network. Hey, Greg, I got a question for you. You identified hiring and workplace culture as areas most roofing contractors are not addressing effectively. Looking to the future, because Keith and John keep looking to the future of this roofing industry, and I keep thinking it's actually more of a tech industry than an old school blue collar roofing industry. But listen, looking at the coming years, what challenges do you believe contractors are still failing to recognize or react to?
Well, you've already talked about it today. You said that in the Ohio, whatever, there's like a 60,000 person shortage. Jason Wong, the guy that runs NVIDIA, gigantic tech company, has said that the tech build out is going to be the biggest infrastructure build out in human history.
Yep.
And he projects that by 2030, we're going to need an additional over 500,000 construction workers. Jim Farley, the guy that runs Ford, he doesn't own Ford, he runs Ford. He says that already we're short 500,000 construction workers and 600,000 factory workers. Roofing contractors don't understand that the labor shortage that they are experiencing is going to get worse. And they don't understand that what's really necessary is they need to build a culture where people want to come and work. If you don't have a waiting list of people wanting to come to work for you, your culture's not good enough. Pure and simple.
Kiesel, he's dropping nuggets, man. Hayne is dropping nuggets this morning. John Kiesel.
Yeah, the culture topic is something that you hear people discuss. They get out their, core values, and we do great roofs. We do this. We service our clients, and Greg will say those are right to play. Those are permission to be in the industry. These are not core values. And, I took that to heart when we developed our core values: faith, forward thinking, ambitious, inspiring, teachable, and honest. And we make a whole ecosystem around our core values. And I know, because I look from the outside in here, and I'm fairly decent at being an honest judge of ourselves and maybe our worst critic, but it's working. People love to work here. We don't have the turnover. We have, a solid group of people that I really embrace every single one of them. And the culture component is a real thing to do the right way. Now, throwing it back to Greg here, discussing, the peer groups and the things that you've done for many, many years. And I'm starting to see something new, the waking up essays. And I've been very kind of intrigued about what do we got going on now, Greg, with waking up essays, and how can they help us? What do we got to do? Wake up and start writing a bunch of stuff down? What's going on here?
So what happened? I asked those pain questions that I just alluded to, and the group doesn't know. Nobody knew how to address that. So what I started doing is I started taking peer group time to do presentations to teach them how to do these things. And every time I would do this, I say, is this helpful? And you want more? They all say yes. So I know I'm on the right track. So the waking up essays are an effort by me to provide them or anybody else with more of these kinds of thoughts. And so that it's not just in the peer group meeting, but every other week they can get a little tidbit that can help them in the leadership area, in their personal growth area. Because, see, focusing on becoming a better leader, they need to focus on becoming a better human being, a more expansive human being. As they become a bigger person, have more capacity, the leadership takes care of itself.
Greg, Keith, and Greg, Keith, and John hanging out live this morning on the tie-in brought to you by our friends at Division 7 and Telos. Greg, as we're wrapping up with you this morning, where can folks find you? Where can they engage with you? Where can you hire you? Where did Kiesel find you? Where's Greg Hayne located?
Well, John already knew how to get a hold of me, but they can reach me at haynecoachinggroup.com. They can find me on Substack if they know what Substack is.
Yeah.
But Hayne Coaching Group, or they can send me an email if they want to talk to me at greg@haynecoachinggroup.com. I'm glad to talk to people.
Awesome. And John, before Greg goes, what would you say, somebody might be surprised with when they decide to engage with Greg?
I think they're going to be surprised with what they discover about themselves. The discovery process, and Greg has laid the foundation of trust with the credibility already. If they don't see the opportunity to be with Greg as a serious place for them to grow, it's not the question of, is Greg going to help me? Because it's proven Greg helps people in this industry. I think it's going to be a journey that they're going to be surprised about what that impact is going to be on them.
Yeah. And Greg, final words for you. Is there anything that we didn't get to today, or is there anything that you did not get a chance to address that you want to make sure the roofing industry or people within your peer groups or people you speak to hear today from you, Greg?
So what I have noticed today is that John Kiesel is continuing to grow as a human being. The conversations that we're having here, John and I could not have had 3 years ago. Even 3 years ago, they would not have been as polished. There's some of the same questions wouldn't be there. All of this work that John is doing on himself is translating to what you see in the business. And that will always be the case for anyone.
Wow. And so I'm going to hang here for a second then, actually, because that's proof. Not to blow smoke at Kiesel, but let's just talk in front of John.
It's easy to blow smoke at Kiesel.
Yeah, no, but it is, isn't it? Actually, but there's somebody, again. There's somebody listening. There's somebody paying attention. There's somebody tuning in, going, "Oh, so that's what it's really about. It's actually about getting better as myself." Oh, and to hear you say that, Greg.
The late Jim Rohn said you need to work harder on yourself than you do on your job.
Yeah. So then, John, coming back to you, when you hear Greg say that, does it seem so obvious to you today that is happening to you? Or can you remember your time through life going intentionally making moments to get better?
Yeah. I mean, I can put my finger on a few of those transitional moments. And it was, one of the things that stands out to me was with Greg, and he actually had a journaling exercise. Me, a guy coming from the roofing field and giving an opportunity to work in a roofing company and grow it, was something I didn't necessarily have a whole lot of practice at, but, joining the peer group, and Greg puts a journaling exercise in front of us, and I write down a bunch of things, and they happened like almost like automatically. And it opened my eyes to seeing the opportunities to fill out what I wrote on that paper.
That's cool.
And I think it was like 3 or 4 years later, we were in another peer group meeting, and Greg asked us, "Hey, let's go ahead and journal and write down some things that we want, how we want to see ourselves." And he walked by, Keith, and I wasn't writing. He's like, "John, why aren't you writing?" I was like, "I'm afraid, Greg, because I start writing down a bunch of stuff, and all of a sudden I'm going to have like 50 other things on me that I'm paying attention to. So I'm going to be more careful with my genie in the bottle right now. I don't want to waste my wishes."
Yeah. You know what I take out of it, Greg? And hey, Mike is making stuff. I see your comments there. I know I love what Greg's putting on the table as well. So what I've seen, Greg, and you've used the word a few times, and it's a word that's scary to a lot of humans, is intention. Because when we become intentional, we got to commit. When we commit, either failure or success happens, and it's either one of the two, right? So when I see somebody being intentional, it's fascinating to me. And I see you work with men and women as leaders to help them be intentional. And when you're intentional, magic happens, doesn't it, Greg?
It does. It absolutely does. Those contractors that go from 4 million to 20 million.
Yeah, because you told them to go sell. You're like, go get off your ass and go sell. And all of a sudden they're intentionally selling. And you're like, oh, there's no rocket science behind it.
Yeah. They're having more fun.
Yeah, having more fun. And one last thing I'll say too that I want to say about John with you, Greg, is you called it out. I never thought, John, we'd hear Jensen Wang's name on our commercial roofing show, but Greg just laid it out. The future of commercial roofing is tech. It's tech, it's robotics, it's AI, it's Telos. And that's what I love as I've been continuing to work with John, Greg, because he sees that future. And I go into meetings with John as he's talking to people that don't see that future. By the end of the meeting, they're like, oh yeah. Right. So, and I think a lot of it has to do with your peer group coaching. So Greg, well done coaching our friend, John Kiesel.
Wouldn't be here without you, Greg. Thank you so much, brother.
That's awesome. Greg, thanks for hanging out with us this morning. We're going to have Hector, Randy, and Michelle walk you out. I invite you to check out this exit clip as our team walks you out of the building this morning. Greg, Hayne, thanks for hanging out with us.
Thanks, Keith. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Not many guys walk in and tell a room full of contractors they've been part of the problem. Respect that.
I'm reading those essays tonight. First time I've said that about anything with waking up in the title.
Every guest leaves with one of these. You earned yours twice over today.
Don't let it go to your head. Mine's got 40 years on his.
Go on, get out of here before Hector starts giving you homework.
Greg, Hector, and Randy walking Greg out of the building this morning. John, that was awesome. We're going to come back to that. But as we keep this show rolling, Greg's out of the room, but we're still not done with still standing. John, we've talked a lot about seeing the problem and patching the problem. Now let's talk about what happens when somebody finally decides to fix the problem. So, John, an inspection can identify every issue on a roof, but nothing improves until somebody actually makes the repair. We just talked to Greg about talking about how owners have a hard time with feedback and sometimes watching them struggle to act on it. What separates somebody who hears hard feedback from somebody who actually changes because of it? Maybe you have your own personal experience with that, John.
Yeah, I think it's a confidence in yourself. It's a confidence that, you've been given wisdom, you've been given experiences, and being able to answer to the problem, answer to complications, and be comfortable with the decision that needs to be made. And I think that's a lot of people sometimes are a little afraid of making those decisions and being responsible for them. Yeah. So, I think that's a key component, is actually just being not, obnoxious, yes, but being confident in their job, because they have to lead and they have to make decisions.
Hard feedback from anybody is humbling. And I know that even myself as a business owner, John, and I know yourself too along the way, like it's, and I found what was best for me as a business owner, John, was when I stopped defending old habits and recognizing that they were bad habits that were getting in my way. Can you relate to that yourself?
Yeah, 1,000%. I think I would definitely find myself, I don't like to be criticized. I don't think I like, hey, criticize me. Hey, tell me I'm doing that. It doesn't feel good when you're criticized. But over time, you start to realize that it's okay to be equal in relationships, and to hear some criticism. If you're going to give it, you got to be able to take it.
Yes, absolutely. Keith and John here live on the Tie-In every single Thursday, brought to us by our friends at Division 7 and Telos. We're going to move on to another favorite segment of mine called Above the Line, where every week we recognize somebody in this industry who's doing more than just building a business. They're helping move people and the industry forward. Today, Kiesel, you put Ryan Groth on the table, and Ryan's story didn't start in roofing. It started on a baseball field, and when the chapter ended, he took a look at some discipline, resilience, and systems thinking from the game and brought it into commercial roofing sales. Jimmy, let's show everyone why Ryan Groth is above the line before we have some commentary from John.
Ryan didn't grow up dreaming about roofing. He grew up dreaming about baseball. He played professionally, chased that dream as far as it would take him, and when it ended, he had to figure out what was next. He landed in sales and CRM for a commercial roofing company in South Florida, and something clicked. He built systems, pipeline stages that mapped straight back to the game he knew best. First base, second base, third base, home. He called it baseline selling. That same resilience became the fuel for something bigger, driven by a mission to professionalize an industry that deserved better. He founded Sales Transformation Group in 2018. What started as one guy with a whiteboard has now trained over 1,000 contracting companies and more than 5,000 sales pros. The wins, the mistakes, everything shaping the businesses and careers he gets to be part of. That's Ryan. this week's nominee on Above the Line.
This one's pretty cool. John, you've spent your career around contractors, operators, and people trying to build better businesses. Now, Ryan's helped train more than 1,000 contracting companies and over 5,000 salespeople. Nothing to sniff at. So let me throw this to you. Why Ryan Groth? And what do you think he's brought to the industry that makes him above the line? John Kiesel.
He brought an exciting persona to the industry with a lot of new concepts with training and how to be trained through video modules and participation in a coaching online type of way. I think that was, relatively early in, the way we started to look at things, and pioneered that whole process to be, adopted. Now it's mainstream every day. Everybody's okay with signing in and watching video modules and learning from them as a group. But I think he brought the energy, he brought the excitement, he brought passion for what he was standing behind, and he built and developed and had the success to prove it worked. And the industry really, really rallied behind Ryan, and we still do. Here in October, he's going to have another transformation group conference in Nashville. I'm going to be a proud speaker there with him, and Ryan just brings a lot of energy.
Awesome. Ryan Groth, we're celebrating you today, my friend. Looking forward to meeting you and having you on the tie-in with Keith and John and the entire gang at Division 7. Hey, John, what if you could inspect the workmanship on every section of a commercial roof without waiting for the final walkthrough? Well, listen, we know somebody who can. Uptelos makes issues visible, geolocated, and tied to the exact area of the project. So the crew goes back to the problem before it's buried under the next course of material. Guys, this isn't just about project documentation. No, it's quality control with proof. Guys, I invite you to go check it out. See how it works at uptelos.com.
He's cut 4 guys from his group. Guys everybody liked.
Everybody liked him, and he still cut him.
Said liked wasn't the bar anymore.
I've kept guys past their good years just because I trusted them.
Wait,
Trust keeps a guy on the crew. It won't grow the company, though.
That's the gap in my own reviews.
is half my hiring problem actually a keeping problem?
More than half. You just don't want to say it to a guy's face.
So that's his whole method. Say it straight or they're gone.
And most owners won't do either.
Yeah, me too.
Live on the Time, presented by Division 7 and Uptelos. Hey, John, I loved the conversation we had a few moments ago with Greg Hayne. I want to break it down. You've been in his peer group. You've learned from Greg. What are some of the nuggets that you want to or have brought already back to Division 7?
Yeah, the nuggets in these peer groups, it's a range of, sharing best practices from safety programs and how to measure and properly deploy a safety program. That was a huge nugget. And really the biggest nugget, you might not be surprised about this, Keith. Greg had the ability to go and visit, roofing contractors around the country. And my most exciting experience was when he took us to K-Post with Steve Little.
Yes.
I had never met Steve Little. I really didn't. I didn't even know who K-Post was. This was maybe 10 or more years ago, and Steve Little opened up his doors and let Greg Hayne's peer group tour their facility, talk to their service manager, talk about their process, and they shared a ton of information. And when I returned back to Division 7, I had the ability to replicate it as close as I could. They were obviously a lot bigger company and doing a lot more volume than us, but in our space, I saw the process, I saw what worked, and I implemented. And that's really one of those gratitude things to to Steve Little that I still have.
Yeah. What I took from Greg is, and it's, as I've learned about Greg and Greg's business, in many ways, Greg's in the mirror business. He's selling you your own mirror. And until you decide to look into that with intention and commitment, you're just actually staring through the mirror, because it's really no more complicated than that. And that's what I find fascinating, right? Because whether it's commercial, pick whatever business, whatever industry, if you're the dude or the dudette that's in the way, nothing's happening. Right. And I heard Greg talk about you, because 3 years ago, you might have been in the way, but through changes you've been making, Division 7 and John's career keeps doing this. It's humbling when we get out of the way of our own mirror, isn't it, John?
Well, and it is in discovering those things that, maybe being a visionary, having the ability to see, the benefits of doing a conversation with you here today, and we're doing these things. It's having that ability to have a vision and doing those things. But, what we're talking about is coaching, right? Like selling a mirror. A successful coach is going to get you to realize your problem without being told what your problem is. So that experience is something that really is transformational in a person when you identify it yourself versus somebody telling you it.
Well, then let's go here then, because I think our next nugget lines us up well, because let's experience go through a storm. So in the commercial roof world, there's a roof during a storm, and you ask yourself, it's not a perfect day. There's a storm happening. Business isn't that much different. A brutal year in business exposes what was really strong and what only looks strong when things were easy. So here's the question. When a company goes through a difficult season, what do you think, in your experience, Kiesel, usually separates the things that hold up from the things that fall apart? Is there one thing? What's the common denominator, John?
And this may sound a little bit, if the word is cliche, but with adversity comes opportunity.
Yeah.
The challenges, the near misses, the bad times, the stress times. When you look at that, and I think it may take some experience, it maybe take some maturity, but let's not react. Let's respond, and let's look at this thing as an opportunity and fix it, and let's make sure it doesn't happen again and move on.
And I'll invite you to consider this, because I heard it from Greg. This is not me speaking hyperbole here. Culture, you said it. Greg said it. You have worked really hard to build a culture in division. And I know you, I'm getting to know you well, humbly enough that it's not just you, it's Steve, it's Ryan, it's George, it's the entire team. They're building that culture. But I think, and what I'm learning from you is that when trouble comes, the culture is what helps us get through it all. Talk to that value of culture that you've worked so hard to build at Division 7, John.
Yeah, it's one of those experiences where you're actually going to take a step back and take a look at, for us, we have big goals. We set big goals and we're achieving those goals. But there was a time when we were a much smaller company and talking about goals and reaching beyond into that BHAG goal setting, we say, oh my gosh, like no way. I mean, we're already maxed out. Well, now we have a great culture. That growth is spread around on a lot of shoulders.
Yes.
Not shoulders, not just one other person, not George's shoulders or Steve's or Ryan's. It's the whole team's shoulders that supports the growth, and we can widen out that foundation at a click of a button to bring on more people to help us bear that weight. But it starts with the culture, and you're right. It's not me. It's 100% not me. It's everybody rowing in the same direction with.
But you know what's really cool though, John, is that somewhere along the way, a leader, whether it's yourself, whether it's George, or whoever, has to have that kind of awareness that we, like I, kind of metaphor, have to get out of the way for the culture to thrive, right? So, because yes, it's organic, but it also takes leadership as well, right?
Yeah, it takes the right people. It takes the right mindset to be a contributor to the culture, not the president of the culture, right?
Yeah. Yes.
We're sitting at a round table here. We don't have a square table. We're not a rectangular table. It's a round table, and we all govern. I guess the what would you want to call it? I guess we all govern our actions that align with the values, right?
I like that analogy of the round table. I haven't heard that one before, because when you think of a square or rectangle table, there's hierarchy involved, isn't there? Who's at the front of the table, the back of the table, the side of the table? That's interesting. But a round table puts everybody in the same spot. I love that. That's really brilliant. Hey guys, today we're talking bad apples that are in the bunch.
Bet Haynes hit you different than most.
Every line hit different today. I run the company now. Doesn't mean I like being the ceiling.
Nobody likes it. Doesn't make it less true. He walked a paying member out the door for it. You paying attention?
Every word, old man. John and Keith are about to answer for themselves out there.
Then let's see if they've got the nerve Hayne did. Get in there and find out.
Right behind you.
Same as always.
All right, you're live with Keith and John here on the Tie-In every single Thursday at 10 o'clock Eastern time, where today we're talking bad apples that are in the bunch. And we just wrapped up with Greg Hayne a few moments ago. John, let's get into when the business owner finally figures out he's the ceiling. There's a theme in today's show, guys. John, question to you, my friend, because maybe you've been here. I have. What have you seen in your own peer groups and in business where a person has actually had that aha moment? I'm thinking you've seen it happen without naming names. Can you think of a specific example of someone's aha moment? Maybe it's even been your own.
Yeah, and it's definitely an emotional moment in time. And I'll go ahead and pick on myself on this, but I've seen it. And the more we see it, I think the more successful we are, right? As a group, the more people that kind of embrace this, we're growing, the company's growing. I have to grow too. What I did 15 years ago is not going to be the same strategy as it is today. So we all have to grow. We all have to adopt. I mean, there's systems around here right now is forward thinking as I'm kind of perceived to be, but there are systems running here today that I might be a half out of touch with, to be honest with you, because there's people here that are just implementing, making things happen. I'm not even going to pretend that I'm going to program all this software to do all the things it's doing. So, I think we have to keep up. We can't become, obsolete. We have to keep up with what's happening and continue to find a way to provide value to the people that work in our businesses, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And no, sometimes when people think about peer groups, I know you have been in many, and that's obviously what Greg runs. A peer group is not therapy. It's really the one room where nobody is paid to protect you. But yet I think, we all walk into these peer groups with egos. How do you manage yourself in that situation where you're like, oh, wait a minute, Keith calling me out on this, or Greg's calling me out on this? It's very humbling. John Kiesel.
Yeah, that might be your first experience with emotional intelligence. That's another fun word that we're kind of discovering. In the last 5 or 6 years, I've heard it a lot of times, but it might be your first experience with, I really can't say what I think, and I really just can't, cut out of my natural state of mind, and I have to practice emotional intelligence. And I think that that's something that carries from that peer group into our own businesses, and be careful with what we say and process a little bit better before it comes out of your mouth.
Yeah. Keith and John here live on the Tie-In. Hey, John, wrapping up the segment with you this morning, I want to talk reactive and proactive. I want to ask your personal experience. Have you always been a proactive human, or did you have to learn how to become proactive?
Yeah, I think that's going to be a little bit of a Mercury type of situation. There's going to be a little bead rolling in this circle, and maybe another couple of beads rolling in that circle with a proactive, reactive. Being reactive is always uncomfortable to me. It's always uncomfortable for our associates when we always are in this state of heightened requirements when it comes to activities. And that's where, danger lies, in reaction and moving and doing things not quite as thought through as we need to. But that is also the opportunity for great growth and great development. When we get a phone call like we did last week, hey, my building just got hit by a tornado, I need to have this thing sealed up. Well, we don't have a chance to go out there and, investigate this thing, take a tremendous amount of time, and, keep them, sitting in a building with the roof blown off for, 2 months while we prepare for it. We have to react like a fireman. Like, we have to be trained to deal with those scenarios. And that's what we do. We trained, we understand them, we stay safe about it, and we can triage quickly. But there's benefits in both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would say for myself, John, I talk with my team all the time in business, and just, people that get to know me. I believe if you're reacting, you've already lost. And I believe that we as humans we're natural reactors. So I like to encourage people around me and leaders to always be thinking to be proactive. I don't think anybody's ever going to complain if you're You're being proactive. Let's use that commercial roof, for example. Maybe there's some relevance there. If I own that building, I'm kind of going a game here with you here. There have to be steps, maybe with our friends at Uptellos, with the technology they have in play. There has to be steps in place that I can do as much possible to proactively prevent situations. I know storms are storms. Mother Nature's going to have its way, but I would like to believe that I can be proactive as possible before I have to react. Is there truth to that, Kiesel?
Yeah, there's definitely truth to that. The proactive and reactive is kind of interesting because a lot of times we look at that with procrastination.
Yes.
Procrastination is, I think, the driver of reactionary.
Yes.
You could have seen, and you have been aware of this situation, and you just haven't dealt with it. That drives me.
It's coming. Yeah, it's coming, right? It's like the same.
Yeah, like the tank is going to eventually get out.
Yes.
You're going to eventually be out of gas.
Yes.
Like, well, is this like earth-shattering thing to you one day? Like, I have to get gas now, and I have no choice.
Is that like the April 30th deadline? Oh, you mean my taxes are due?
Yeah, like what? Like, oh my gosh, it's not. You're not. It's just your inability to just deal with things proactively.
Yeah.
And not procrastinate.
Not procrastinate. Okay, so then here's the one nugget I want you to leave our roofing commercial owner right now, John Kiesel. If a commercial roofing owner watching this segment right now was going to do one thing this week, not this quarter, this week, to start doing the work on himself or herself, what would you say?
I am going to go with, now I'm not going to phone a friend on this. I'm just going to come at it, just right now. I think it's going to be take a week off, separate yourself from the business, and think clearly and write down your top 10 issues and try to prioritize those. So when you return, you actually can develop a plan. I think it's developing a plan and having clarity while you're developing it.
You're dropping nuggets. Let's keep it going then, because I got one more nugget for it, because this is a good one for that owner, because I think what you're offering is the kind of stuff that somebody might get out of a peer group. So I'm sitting here and listening to you going, so John, here's the question. What makes an owner somebody other experienced owners will want in that room year after year? Rephrasing that, what makes you want somebody else like me or like you in that room with you? Are you looking for somebody who's prepared, unprepared, humble, intentional? Think about the people around you in your peer group. So John, what makes an owner somebody other experienced owners still want in that room with them?
I'm not going to John you with that question. I think I know what you're suggesting here.
Yes.
When we walk into a building, we walk into a room full of people, whether it's a conference, wherever it is, we find people that are like us.
Yes.
We're going to find someone that we can kind of get along with. We have similar ideas, we have similar business, we have similar thoughts. We somehow gravitate towards people, and I think that's the component here. Is you have to be open so that others know if they can be your friend, if they can trust you. And I think it kind of boils down to the biggest sniffer. The sniffer's all over trust. You have to demonstrate you're trustworthy, and if that's gone, then it's kind of a deal breaker.
Yeah, and it goes back to what Greg said earlier, right, John? With intention. If I join your peer group but I don't intentionally attend, nobody's going to win. If I join the peer group and I intentionally don't participate, nobody's going to win. It goes back to that intention, doesn't it? Right? And it's just
contribute or consume. I've seen the consumers. They're great at sitting, taking notes, doing all the consumption, and coming prepared for the next peer group meeting. But when it came to that sharing, I don't know if they had good ideas to share, if they were afraid to share, or whatever the reason was, but there wasn't the balance of fairness, the thing that we've learned since we were little kids. Like, we all have to share, otherwise it's not fair.
We're on the home stretch with Keith and John. Hey, still standing does not mean nothing ever broke. It means you learned from what broke and became more valuable because of it. All right, we're going backwards, John. We're going back to the history, to the old guy segment here, and I like to have some fun with this one here. I love history, man. I love looking back because I'm a tech guy and I love looking forward, but forward only works when you look back. We got a full-page ad from John's Manville, promoted asbestos roofing. John Kiesel as a long-term, low-maintenance. You're laughing like I am.
There we go.
When's the last time somebody came and said, "Hey, Kiesel, can I get an asbestos roof?"
Well, they don't come to us, and they 100% do not come to us and ask for asbestos products. The bad news is they work so good that you still find them today, and we have to remediate those with special concerns and cautions and the whole bit. So they work so good, we can still find them today.
So hold on, I want to be serious because I'm not the guy from this industry. So asbestos works that good? Like, let's put all the bad stuff out of it. Is it that good of a product? Like, it's that good?
I think it was that good in everything that it was in, whether it was brakes or cement or insulation or roofing. I mean, unfortunately, it's so good, but just so dangerous too. So thank goodness we kind of detected that, and we just maybe have to spend money a little bit more frequently since it's not part of our daily combinations of things. Yeah.
I get you. It's funny because I was sitting in a hockey rink a couple years back, John, and I'm sitting in the rink, and on the board behind me was this building has asbestos in it. It might be harmful. But anyways, that's just they're still everywhere, aren't they? There's still a lot of asbestos buildings, right?
It's still around. We just can't disrupt it. It's like one of those things, like you just walk by and don't touch it, don't mess with it. It's fine. I mean, it's just sitting there, but I do believe it is still out there in some amount and forms.
Yeah. The History of Roofing every single Thursday with Keith and John, Steve and Ryan on the tie-in. All right, Jimmy, let's wrap it up with the invitation. All right, that's episode 7. Thank you to Greg Hayne of the Hayne Coaching Group for an awesome conversation today. I know we're going to be having him back next Thursday. We'll be joined by Steve. Thanks to the entire team at Division 7. Johnny, what did you think of today's episode, man? We had some good energy on the show. A lot of great conversation with Greg Hayne today.
Fantastic. I do think when we did the first show, we made a commitment to getting better, right? We're only going to get better. I think we're getting better. We still have room for improvement, just like everything else does, but fascinating to watch this process evolve.
Yeah, this is the tie-in presented by Division 7 and our friends at Uptelos. If you want to join us live on this platform, go knock on John's door. Go reach out to John or any of the team at Division 7. Stream our show live, 10 o'clock Eastern time on Thursdays, on demand at roofingauthority.network. Of course, over on the tie-in channel, over on YouTube as well. And a big thank you, of course, to the friends at Uptelos for supporting the tie-in and the Roofing Authority Network. If you want to see what digital twins and visual data can do to your commercial roofing operation, visit uptelos.com. John, closing comments for you before we walk out of the lab here today, my friend.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining. Don't be shy. Hit the click, hit the like, hit the subscribe. We don't want to be, too uptight about, expressing ourselves with liking and subscribing. So we'd appreciate that. And we invite you back next week to see Steve.
That's right. Next Thursday, Keith and Steve will be here. And guys, like John said, subscribe to the channel, like the channel, come say hello to us. We're just getting started. On behalf of John Kiesel, Greg Hayne, Jimmy behind the buttons, Archie behind the buttons, Melissa on the creative, we appreciate all of you guys. I'm Keith Billis. That's John Kiesel. Jimmy, walk us out of here. The tie-in is done.